Welcome to Countarts. When that time of exams is drawing closer and closer, how do you go about studying for it? How do you study for your subject, specifically for accounting or finance or any other numbers subject? Well, here I'm going to share 6 tips that greatly helped me when I was preparing for my exams, and hopefully it should help you too. The first one that I have here is studying 100% of your topics. Well, that might seem like a lot, but that's obvious. You need to know 100% of what is going to be covered in the examination. You need to know what they are. You need to know what the scope of the examination are, even before you go about preparing or setting up your timetable for your examination. What that will help you do is know what topics you have to cover at what point in time and how much you have to cover when you are studying so that you can prepare well in advance. If you are going to get a very good mark for your subject, then you need to study 100% of the topics and you'll fall somewhere close by, especially if you study them well and understand them well. Sometimes a student would go about studying the textbook and start from the beginning and just go on reading and reading, but you might find that that may not be as productive as you need to be. If you can understand what the topics are and you can see how they go about examining those topics, then you will know exactly where to study from those topics. So I would say know what the 100% of your topics are and go about outlining how you'll study that. The second one I have here is the OES method, avoiding the OES method. What is that? Well, I learned that when I was doing my first year at university, where one of the lecturers emphasized that those who are not going to do so well are probably studying using the OES method. The OES method is where you have a question paper here, you have the solution here, and you're looking at the question paper, you're looking at the solution, and you're like, oh yes, I see how they got that answer. Well, that does not help you at all. While you're looking at that question paper and the solution, it might seem like, wow, you're understanding how they went about doing this solution, but you are not going to grasp how to do it yourself in an exam situation or when you have no solution in front of you. Or you're watching a YouTube lesson or a video and you're just watching it, sitting back and watching it till the end. You may understand exactly what's going on until the end, but I can tell you, you'll sit in that exam room and fail to do exactly what you thought you understood. And that is why many students would go into the exam room very confident that they're going to do well and get surprised when the results come out and they didn't do as well as they thought. Chances are they did what I have just mentioned, the OES method. That is the method they used. If you have the solution in front of you and the question paper, then you're not studying. You're just looking at how the solution was prepared. You want to put the solution away. You want to attempt the question paper and then bring the solution once you fully attempted it as if you're in an exam room, and then you can be able to gauge if you fully understood it or where you went wrong. Let me tell you, the more you practice or the more you go through solutions or you attempt them on your own before looking at the solutions, the more you'll be able to see what mistakes you're making. And I can tell you, the chances of you making the same mistakes again will be decreasing with every attempt. And by the time you get to exam situation, you know exactly what you need to do. So avoid the OES method. That's the second one. And the third one we have here is to make the past exam papers your best friend. You want to befriend the past exam papers. I can tell you, we've tutored so many students, or we've had conversations with so many students. We've looked at exam papers, or we've tutored students from various institutions, so many institutions. In fact, now even as we receive new students who come to us for lessons, chances are we've already looked at what exam papers they're going to go through or their study material. What I'm saying by this is that if you study your exam papers, your past exam papers, you will realize that the exam that is due to come or the exam that is to come is going to be very close to what has been done before. So your past exam papers are the key. I can tell you, so many people who have past exam papers tend to study much easier and tend to pass extremely well compared to those who don't have access to question papers. And I know there are some institutions which do not give out past exam papers, or they will give you past exam papers but not produce solutions. And that is where students would come to us and say, hey, can you help us produce solutions for our past exam papers? And we do that. But I can tell you that they are very helpful because there is just something about institutions and recycling past exam papers. Dates are just changed, a few numbers are just changed here and there, but they are very similar to what you're going to look at in the future. So if you have access to the past exam papers, then that is your key to studying, and that is what will simplify your study process. If you can have your past exam papers, study as many as you can and go through them. As many as you have, that is as much as you need to study. And I can tell you that you will probably see something exactly the same or very, very similar in your exam paper, and you'll be smiling as you write the exam. The fourth one we have here is redoing your assignments as you practice. And this specifically for those who do not have access to past exam papers. You'll find that the assignments, like I know some institutions where I would say that at least 60% of the exam papers has to be very similar or the same as what was covered in the assignments. So you know that whatever assignments you're doing is likely to come up in a very similar fashion in your exam. So you want to redo the assignments, and hopefully you will get the solutions to your assignments that you have done, and you want to compare the two when you are doing your practice. And again, avoid the OES method. You need to make sure that as you do your assignment, you're redoing it as if you're in an exam situation, and mark it with the solution to the assignment that you have previously done. So you look at your assignments that you have done during the semester and study those. Those ones will be very close as well to the examination from what we have found. The fifth one we have here is to watch or attend revision classes or exam preparation classes. I can tell you those classes are extremely helpful, not just because it's a class that you need to attend, but I can tell you the lecturers usually actually give away what is going to come out in the exam. I learned this very early on when I was in university, and I would make sure that if anything, I must attend those revision classes. It's usually one class, usually one last class before you go and write your exam later on, but you will realize that the lecturer will point to some things that maybe was not covered in class, or maybe was not spoken about a lot, but you ask yourself, why is he pointing to that? Well, that's specifically because it's likely going to come out in your exam. So if you have a revision class or a catch-up class or exam preparation class, make sure that you don't miss it. They will give away the examination. Many of them will, if you pay careful attention to the words that they used. I remember listening to the lecturer and say, what, we didn't cover this as much, why is he mentioning it here? And I make sure I go and look at that, and lo and behold, it comes out in the exam. The last one I have here is that you need to plan your study sessions well. Remember the first one that I mentioned, you need to study 100% of your topics. Well, if you are shocked or you are surprised or you're asking how on earth am I going to do that, well, that goes with planning your study sessions well. And by doing so, you will be able to cover what you need to cover before your examination. And when you're planning your exam sessions, what I would encourage you to do is that if you have past exam papers, for instance, and you know one of the topics that is going to be covered is, for example, depreciation, take all the exam papers that you have, and for one study session, look at that specific topic in all the exam papers. All right, so you target that specific topic in this session, and in your next exam session, in your next study session, you're going to target another topic, and then in the end, you plan a session where you'll be attempting the full question paper with all the topics. So those are just some tips, and that's not the only way, obviously, to study. However you feel has worked for you and will work for you, then go ahead and do that. All right, this list was not exhaustive. They're not the only ones, and you can see some of them overlapped, but this, if you follow them and you do them, they should greatly help you in your examinations. If you have more tips, or if you have ways that you have been helped in your studies, or that will greatly help you in your studies, you can leave them in the comment section below. Till next time, study well.